29 can be found at collegeadvantage.com/Bobcats. Support comes from Dean Heating and Cooling, keeping homes cool all summer with Tempstar. Dean Heating and Cooling provides HVAC service and installation in the Athens area, featuring Tempstar quality you can feel. Additional support from Donato's Pizza, featuring pizza, subs, salads, and catering from their Athens location at 688 East State Street. Information at donatospizza.com or 740-592-5049.
Tonight on Gridiron Glory. With conference championship hopes on the line, we head to the key matchups across the 740. Plus, a look into one of the most difficult playoff regions in Ohio. And in our game of the week, Miami Trace travels to Jackson, looking to dethrone the perennial FAC powerhouse. All that and more because Gridiron Glory starts right now! The regular season is boiling down with battles for conference titles and playoff implications taking it up another notch. Welcome back to Gridiron Glory. I'm your host, Haley Hollinger. Tonight's roundup speaks directly to that. Waverly hosts Wheelersburg with hopes of snagging a share of the SOC, while Bloom Carroll and Bishop Hartley are scrapping for playoff positioning in Region 11. And Eastern travels to Trimble to try and keep a hold of the TVC Hawking. Now, the Hawking is up in the air right now, but that's not the only reason this Eagles and Tomcats matchup is interesting. In conference or not, this is always a close competition. TVC Hawking reporter Maddie Kiefer is here with the scoop.
Yeah, Haley, this game is an opportunity for revenge as the Eagles stole this game by 1 point last year, while handing Trimble their first conference loss. This matchup once again has big implications. Trimble is undefeated in the Hawking and controls their destiny. And while Eastern has one conference loss, they still have a chance for a piece of the title with a win. It was homecoming at Eastern, and there goes the future Eagles leading out the present. This one started fast. Tyler Hill gets the block, and there he goes. This run was so long, we have to speed that up. 80 yards to the house. Remember the name. Eastern drives again. It looks like the play is stuffed, but oh no, you don't. Tyler Hill gets to the end zone untouched. 14-zip Eagles. Wait, Haley, is this the same exact play? You know what they say, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. That's 3 for Tyler Hill and a 21-0 lead for Eastern. Trimble needs something to hang in there, and Paul Sharp said, I'll get this train rolling. He picks off Ethan Edwards and gets inside the 25. A few plays later, it's punched in, keeping the Tomcats in the game. With time running out in the half, Trimble has an opportunity. Brady J6 rolls out, Paul Sharp gets free and delivers. What a ball and what a catch. The Tomcats needed this, and Paul Sharp revs up and propels himself into the end zone. Put that man on a track team. The Eagles still lead 41-14 going into the half. Ultimately, Eastern would keep their foot on the gas and take this one 41-20. Haley, what a game and what a performance by Tyler Hill.
Yeah, for real. I mean, I know he's always been an asset, but tonight was a different level. So what was the difference for him?
Well, Tyler Hill is a traditionally gritty running back who has no problem getting those extra yards. But tonight, he also proved his ability to run the field. Before today, Hill had 11 touchdowns in 7 games, but tonight, 4. In games like these, you need your leader, and he stepped up.
Absolutely, and he's obviously a big part of the Eagles' offense, but how did they perform as a unit?
The Eagles like to keep the ball on the ground. They did not throw their first pass until there was a minute left in the first half. That being said, it seemed to work out for them just fine.
And on the other hand, Trimble's defense has been a force to be reckoned with this season. Did it hold up today?
Hey, this defense is very good, don't get me wrong, but today it wasn't strong enough. There have only been 3 games where the Tomcats have allowed more than 20 points, and those are their 3 losses. They will have to be perfect in the remaining 2 games of the season to keep their title hopes alive. Speaking of the conference, there is now potential for a 3-headed monster. Waterford remains the only undefeated team in the conference, but next week they play Trimble. And if they lose this game and Eastern beats Belpre, all 3 teams hold a single loss in the season in the conference, making it all come down to week 10. If this happens and Eastern beats Southern and Waterford beats Belpre, this conference will have 3 champions. Haley, I'm not sure that the TVC Hawking has ever been this close before, and it will sure be a photo finish from these three teams.
Yeah, it's going to be exciting to see. Thanks, Maddie. But in the meantime, if you find yourself wanting more football, make sure to check out our social media for content like photos, recaps, and highlights. Those are going to be added to our Facebook, X, TikTok, and YouTube. And don't forget about pregame huddle segments throughout the week for preview segments on our Showtime games. If it's SEO football you're looking for, we've got it. Now, the conference craziness across the 740 doesn't stop in the Hawking. The last two undefeated teams in the SVC are facing off as Unioto heads to Zane Trace, which means it's time to buckle up for another yearly rivalry with big conference implications. SVC reporter Zach Knight has all the details.
Yeah, Haley. After Piketon's upset win against Paint Valley last week, both these teams have the opportunity to put themselves in the driver's seat of the conference. So let's get into it. Coin toss went the Pioneers' way, and we were off to the races. Unioto picked up a handful of first downs, and Mason Hartley had a big rush to get the Shermans to the doorstep of the end zone. QB Isaac Coy takes it and goes down hard, but picks up 6 for his Shermans. Zane Trace takes it the other way, but Unioto turns things right back around after a fumble recovery. Before we even had time to get down to the other side of the field, Zane Trace snagged an interception. These two were playing hot potato, and we're just a few minutes in. As the sun went down, and the temperature cooled off, it was clear these offenses were just heating up. Peyton Dotson lives up to his name, catching this pass and getting some room on the Unioto defense on this big play. Couple plays later, and Silas Stewart charges in past the Unioto defense to put him up 7-6. Unioto still had some fight, snagging another interception before heading to the locker room. Ultimately, this big-time conference matchup would end with Unioto on top and a final score of 28-14. Haley, we knew going into this one that the winner would be on the top of the SVC, and these two absolutely wanted a piece of that conference title.
Yeah, but it's not all said and done yet.
Far from it. Both these teams still have one roadblock in common, and that's Paint Valley. Don't count them out after their loss to Piketon last week. They're still absolutely a force to be reckoned with in this conference. Unioto will host the Bearcats next week, while the Pioneers have another week to breathe before their Paint Valley matchup in Week 10.
And while we're looking ahead, Zach, let's go ahead and talk about what factors were on display tonight that may influence those coming weeks.
Yeah, we talked about some of the turnovers before. In the first half alone, there were 4, 3 of which were interceptions. Both defenses were undeniable, and the offenses offered a lot too. Unioto had a lot of options to work it through the air and on the ground. There's a lot that both teams can lean on to give them the edge against the Bearcats in the coming weeks.
So next week is looking like a conference championship in the making with Unioto and Paint Valley.
Yeah, that'll be one to definitely keep an eye on. These two have been on their A game this season. The stats don't lie. With 2 high-flying offenses and a lot of stars on both sides, this is the SVC game to watch next week.
So with a win against Paint Valley, Southeastern will be the only team in the way of Unioto and back-to-back undefeated conference seasons.
Yeah, and for Paint Valley, they'll need to beat Unioto and keep things rolling against Zane Trace in Week 10 if they want to claim the title for themselves. We'll have to hang tight until Week 10 to see how the dust settles in the SVC. There's still a lot on the line in this conference.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Thanks so much, Zach. Unioto now sits alone at the top of the SVC. Paint Valley and Zane Trace are close behind and currently tied at 2nd. Piketon sits at 4th, and Westfall is sitting in 5th. Adena and Huntington both lost tonight, keeping them tied in the 6th spot. Southeastern stays put in 8th. And keep in mind, Zane Trace and Paint Valley play in Week 10, so still time for a shakeup. The SVC and TVC Hawking have been playing in conference for a while, but for the TSL, it's their first week. While 7 weeks before conference play might be a little abnormal, what's not is TSL reporter Ashley Fry joining us for all things TSL.
Haley, through the first 7 weeks of this season, these 4 teams have been putting in the work to establish just how difficult the fight for that #1 spot is going to be. Right now, the TSL sits at a 17-8 overall record. All 4 squads have only seen 2 losses this season. Marietta, Fort Fry, and Warren are all 5-2, while Point sits at 2-2. Safe to say these teams have shown up this season, so this is what we're going to look for in conference play. With just 1 win, Marietta would grab their first winning season in 22 years. Warren in 4, and wins for Fort Fry would add another winning season to their 13-year-long streak. After all this TSL talk, we could have picked just 1 game to break down, but let's start in Beverly, where Fort Fry and Marietta meet again for the second season of conference play. First Fort Fry drive of the night, and if you don't know your unalienable rights, you're about to. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of shutting down Fort Fry's run game. Clayton Miller takes the ball 66 yards to the end zone, but Fort Fry won't stop there. One possession later, and wingback Tice Beardsley runs it 30 yards up the field for another 6. That's 14-0 Cadets. But we know better than to count Marietta out. A beautiful Trent McVeigh pass and a huge grab by Seth Britton would set Carson Chavez up to cruise into the end zone and put the Tigers on the board, 14-7 entering the half. But Marietta's momentum would not hold for long, and Fort Fry would take this one 28-21 and repeat last year's victory. Now let's move to West Virginia, where Warren looks to rewrite the history of last year's 1-point loss. But who will make a statement first tonight? It's Point Pleasant quarterback Caden Hill, who drops back, can't find anyone, doesn't matter, he'll do it himself. Takes it left and into the end zone, 7-0 Point Pleasant. Next point possession, Caden Hill again drops back to pass, and this time finds his man Reese Hunt. Not a defender in sight, so he has to go. 50 yards to the house, another 6 for Point Pleasant. Point is rolling. Running back Isaac Creel grabs the handoff and get out of his way because he's got a date with the end zone that he can't miss. 20-0 Point Pleasant. Minutes to half, and Moore responds with a huge 80-yard Tanner Pepper run to the house. Something's in the TSL air tonight, but this would not be enough to pull through, and Warren would fall 44-13.
So after all that, we got to touch on the playoffs. What changed tonight?
Well, before tonight, Fort Fry was 100% locked into the playoffs, so with this win, they'll stay there. But Marietta and Warren's losses will make huge impacts tonight. Warren now moves from 9% to 6, and Marietta from 15 to 11. This is because Region 11 is no joke. If these two want a chance to see Week 11, a lot of things will need to break their way within the region.
Wow, Ashley, can't wait to see. Thanks so much. And speaking of Region 11, it's creating a different postseason reality than a lot of teams are used to. Some teams who are used to making the playoffs won't be, even with a winning record. TVC Ohio reporter Shane Scalfaro is in studio with more.
Yeah, Haley, every 2 years, the Ohio High School Athletic Association realigns its football divisions and regions. And this year held the latest realignment. The already difficult Division III Region 11 welcomed 12 new teams, making a postseason run even tougher than it was before.
Region 11 was already home to teams like Bishop Watterson, Bloom Carroll, Jackson, and Tri-Valley. When the OHSAA announced their newly realigned divisions and regions this April, Region 11 welcomed perennial contenders like Steubenville, Bishop Hartley, Licking Valley, and Sheridan. Jackson head coach Andy Hall says the changes pose a new challenge.
The amount of teams from Division II that dropped down or Division IV teams that went up, it went to become probably the best or the toughest region in the entire state of Ohio, regardless of divisions.
The additions mean good teams will be left out of the postseason. Marietta is one of those teams on the bubble. Despite having one of their most successful seasons in recent years, they're on the outside looking in. And with 2 games against Division III opponents left, head coach Jason Schob knows the Tigers are searching for playoff points.
Obviously, if you beat a team in your region, that puts them behind the 8 ball a little bit. That gives you a little bit of boost. But we try to get as many teams in our region on our schedule, and so hopefully we can take care of business Week 10, and that gives us a little bit of a boost.
The Athens Bulldogs are in a similar boat, but are essentially locked into the playoffs. However, they're still hunting for better seeding. While they're not overlooking the final couple weeks, head coach Nathan White says they're keeping a small eye on potential opponents.
When you have a good football team, your players and the coaches after a win on Friday night this time of year start peeking at that and seeing who it might be, and nobody really knows. Who knows what could happen these last 3 weeks.
But one thing is certain, no playoff matchup will be easy.
It's going to be a dog race to see who gets in that top 16, but then your 1-16 and 2-15 matchups are going to be very close.
With positioning and postseason appearances on the line, the margin of error for teams in Region 11 is slim, with now only 2 weeks left in the regular season. Reporting for Gridiron Glory, I'm Shane Scalfaro, live in studio.
Thanks, Shane. Like he was talking about, the madhouse that is Region 11 has a slim margin of error, and it's no different for Bishop Hartley and Bloom Carroll. The Hawks, as we mentioned, are new to the region, and this game is critical to the playoffs. Speaking of playoffs, we've got the perfect guy, MSL reporter Charlie Ehlenfeld. Charlie?
Thanks, Haley. Critical indeed. With a win tonight, Hartley's playoff hopes go to 99%, but with a loss, it's 39%. And Bloom Carroll's a bit of the opposite situation. With a win tonight, they clinch. They've already clinched. But with a win tonight, they can improve their home field advantage. Now, let's get into the action. Bloom Carroll traveled to Bishop Hartley Hawks in hopes of claiming a critical Region 11 victory. It was all gas, no brakes from the jump. Robert Lathan, remember the name, got the rock, made some Bulldogs miss, and he was gone. After the 20, he waltzed into the end zone to give the Hawks the edge. Ethan Thanthanamong in the Bulldogs struck right back as he rolled out and found Maddox Byler wide open to put Bloom behind by only one. Some misdirection got the Hawks in on the very next play as Bryson Winbrush took the pitch 76 yards, and let's speed this up because there was nothing but green ahead as he took it in for another 6. Hartley could not be denied all night. Bloom was down, but they were not out. Jude Blair got the rock and tied the game with this short rush. Both squads knotted at 38. Who else but Robert Lathan got the ball and snatched the lead right back for the Hawks. With this bruising carry, the Bulldogs had just one more chance. For the first time all night, the Hawks forced a turnover on downs, ending this back and forth thriller with this incomplete pass.
Wow, Charlie, what a game between these two Region 11 powerhouses. How about that offense?
Yeah, it's almost unheard of to have 0 punts in a game, but that's exactly what happened tonight at Jack Ryan Stadium.
Yeah, we've heard all about this multifaceted running attack for Hartley. What did that look like?
Haley, I had a heck of a time just following the action with the camera tonight. Robert Lathan in this ground game could only be stopped once. This entire night, he and the Hawks ran wild at home. Hartley only threw the ball 3 times tonight. It was pound the rock all night.
And despite Bloom's loss, it clearly had nothing to do with the play of Ethan Thanthanamong.
Yeah, he continued to be his all-Ohio self tonight. The Stark senior quarterback was poised and precise in a game that required him to be perfect. He found 3 different receivers on 3 passing touchdowns, and Thanthanamong helped erase a 15-point first-half deficit.
How did Hartley manage to get that final stop?
Pressure. At long last, the Hawks broke through and forced a back-breaking 13-yard sack that effectively crushed Bloom's hopes. Despite the loss, I would not be surprised if these two teams found each other again in November. For Bloom Carroll, it's back to conference play.
Thanks, Charlie. Get back safe. And Charlie isn't the only one not in studio yet, because this week we sent reporters to 3 extra games to give you all as much football as possible. That's right, it's time for the extra point. Starting us off is Hamilton Township in Liberty Union. Here's Lion Max Harris leaping in for the first score of the evening, 7-0 Liberty Union. On their next drive, they look to extend their lead. Noah Shook trying to shake the Rangers, and he'll let one loose, finding Harris downfield, but he just couldn't hang on to it. And next thing you know, it's Rangers ball, and it's Lance Reynolds all the way, tying up 7-7. The Rangers would find their way and win 47-20. Let's take a look at how the MSL Buckeye is shaping up now. Bloom Carroll is still hanging on to first place, but the Rangers win tonight bumps them to second, making next week's matchup one to keep an eye on. Logan, Elm, and Fairfield Union are knotted up at third. Amanda Clear Creek sits at fifth, and Circleville and Liberty Union are both winless in conference. Next, we've got Rock Hill and Portsmouth. Rock Hill came in looking to move up in the OVC with a win over the Trojans. Let's jump to the late first quarter. Rock Hill punts and Portsmouth fumbles the recovery, setting up Rock Hill in the red zone. They then capitalized on the positioning with a little QB sneak from Dalen Cox, putting them up 7. But here comes Trojan JT Williams. He fakes, goes right down the gut, and there's a tutty for the tie. Portsmouth kept it rolling after the half, winning 42-20. Now let's check in on the OVC. Fairland is undefeated in conference, and with a win next week, they clinch at least a share of the OVC. Portsmouth sits at second. Cold Grove is in third. Rock Hill and Chesapeake are tied at fourth, and both South Point and Calia Academy are looking for an OVC win. Our last extra point game is Northwest and Portsmouth West. Senator Brody Hall hands it off to Anthony Bishop. Bishop shrugs off a couple tackles and pushes through to the house to go up 7-0 early. And then they just kept adding on in the second quarter. Hall hands it off this time to Mason Parker, who fumbles at the goal line. Good thing Nicole Rapp is there to pick up the rock and secure 7 more. The Senators didn't stop in the second half, shutting out the Mohawks 35-0. Staying in the SOC for yet another conference conundrum, it's Wheelersburg and Waverly. Now, the Pirates have had smooth sailing for the last 3 weeks, but the Tigers are looking to bring their ship to a halt, and SOC reporter Donovan Varney has been along for the ride.
Yeah, Haley, despite a choppy start to the season for Wheelersburg, they are locked in right now, and they're making a strong case to be back-to-back SOC champs. And Waverly, well, with the way this conference has been shaking up, the Tigers' hunt for the conference crown may come down to a win tonight. But before we get into that, let's take a look at these two and what stands out. A 3-4 start to the season for Berg for the first time in 18 years and not a single non-conference win. while Waverly, on the other hand, has put together an impressive start to the season. The Tigers are at 5-2 and have played in some competitive games, with both of their losses only being by one score. But enough of the past. Tonight, the future was in these guys' hands. After stopping the Tigers' opening drive in opponent territory, Berg's offense marched down the field. The Rucker to Evans connection was solid from the jump, and so was this guy right here, fullback Ison Emnett. A long drive on the ground for the Pirates would end on the ground with a QB keeper. Rucker found the end zone and lost his helmet on the way. Doesn't matter, Berg strikes first. Into the second, Waverly hit their stride on the ground. Here's Sebastian Bilasano taking it up the gut for a nice gain, and if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Feed him again, and the Tigers are inside of the 10 right here. And just look at this beauty. Here comes QB Mason Kelly rolling out to his left and throws a dot right by the defender into Mason Pollard's hands. And he sees me, I see you, bud. A missed extra point makes it 6-7. Berg is up right now. The Tigers kept the momentum, recovered an onside kick and got a red zone fumble, and that would be the spark they needed. Another Rucker touchdown gave the Pirates a 14-6 lead before the half, and they would go on to win 42-12. And Haley, there's no doubt that this Wheelersburg squad is a second half team, as they scored 28 more points in the second quarter after a tight 2 quarters.
Yeah, I mean, I'll say, but what kept things so close for the first 2 quarters?
Yeah, honestly, it was this guy right here, QB Mason Kelly. He gave him a chance tonight. 2 touchdowns for him, 1 on the ground and 1 through the air, and you can't deny his connection with his 2 receivers, Mason Pollard and Cody Swords. Great awareness for this guy, especially for a high school quarterback.
Oh, yeah. And clock management, of course, is important in any matchup. So how important was it in this one tonight?
Yeah, time of possession was huge tonight. It was the name of the game, honestly. Both teams took their time on offense, and there was a lot of long drives. Not many big games. Every now and then, they would kind of break through the defense, but we didn't see anything crazy. Both teams only had 3 first-half possessions, and they were slow and steady down the field.
Yeah, and it does seem like Berg did it all on the ground tonight.
Yeah, they definitely did. They simplified their offense and went under center a couple weeks ago, and ever since they committed to the run, that combo backfield of Stephen Hall and Ison Emnett has been deadly. 6 total rushing touchdowns on the ground tonight for Berg, and 325 total yards on the ground. Wow. Berg's win tonight puts them one step closer to reclaiming that conference crown, and with Portsmouth West also winning, their Week 10 matchup will be the conference's deciding factor.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Donovan. And with all of that being said, let's check it out. Like he mentioned, the SOC will come down to that game against Portsmouth West and Wheelersburg. Waverly sits at 3rd, Valley follows behind in 4th. Northwest and Minford are tied for 5th. Both still have games with opponents above them. Oak Hill has chances to play spoiler. They still have games against Northwest and Portsmouth West. This week, we searched for our fan of the week in Jackson. There were a lot of fans to talk to, and everyone we did see was incredibly amped. Let's take a look.
This is eerie. What is happening right now?
It's like a ceremony.
What's so special about the hat?
Well, every time we lose, which I have to burn the hat.
So if you had to say one thing to Miami Trace right now, what would you say?
Warm the buses. You told me that you were probably the biggest Jackson fan. Why is that?
Because I never miss a game.
Never?
Ever.
Who do you guys think's gonna win tonight?
Jackson! 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 Jackson!
How did you find out about this game tonight?
I was walking over, I seen some people over, found my minions. We're gonna steal the moon tonight.
Oh, you're gonna steal the moon?
For real. Yeah, this baby blood is good.
Bye! We have decided to make you Gridiron Glory's Fan of the Week this week, which is this super cool t-shirt.
Cool, thank you.
You're welcome. Great.
I feel like Chris Farley now. Big guy in a little shirt. Down by the river.
Thanks so much to all the fans, and from the looks of it, you've been counting down the days until this week's game of the week between the Miami Trace Panthers and the Jackson Ironmen. We've been talking about high stakes all night long, and FAC reporter Grant Kiefer is here to talk even more about them.
Yeah, there hasn't been an FAC game at this level in quite some time, maybe even ever, but yeah, we're hyping up this game, and it's for good reason. That reason, Jackson has run the FAC since its inception in 2017. How about this? There's only been 2 years Jackson hasn't won the title. Miami Trace is on a 6-game win streak, though, and has a chance to control its own destiny for the conference crown with a win tonight. Want to talk about just how much it would mean to the Panthers? They haven't won any conference titles since 2005.
Wow. So I know you went to practices at Miami Trace and Jackson. What was that atmosphere like?
Yeah, Miami Trace, I'm going to tell you this right now. I've never heard the term locked in more than when I went to that practice. But as for the Ironmen, it was all business, and they know they have to protect what's theirs with an FAC title.
We're on 3 straight wins right now, 3 state conference championships. We know it runs through us, and we're proud of that. You know, that's part of our mentality every season. Our #1 team goal is we're going to win the FAC.
Now this begs the question, would this game live up to the hype? Simply put, it did. Jackson's first drive, ball's out. Cooper Enix cribs it to get the scoring started early. Panthers up 7-zip. Next drive, Bodie Wolford airs it out. It's caught. Ryan Simons from one end of the field to the other. Turn on the Jets. Man, he's having a heck of a junior season. Now it's 7-all. Fast forward, second quarter, Trey Robinette dots his man up. He makes the play. Goodness gracious, Miami Trace goes ahead 14-10. Jackson was not going to stay silent long. Right before half, Wolford finds his man, Gavin Jones. It's a foot race. Jackson went for 2, didn't get it, so it's 16-14. Feeling pretty good before the half, right? Not so fast. Austin Brown, don't give him space because he will fly. He finds open space, and what a juke move from the young man. Special teams matter, y'all. Miami Trace up heading into half 21-16. I don't know what happened in Jackson's locker room, but it certainly helped. They flipped the script in the second half. Nolan Johnson keeping it on the ground, not 1, but 2 touchdowns in the half. 22-21, then 29-21. Ironman starting to pull ahead. When in doubt, Wolford's going to air that thing out. Gavin Jones again. 2 TD game for him. Now Jackson's really up, 36-21. Miami Trace still showing some fight, though. Enix scoring TDs on both sides of the ball tonight. Panthers still alive, down 36-27. Next drive, it's time to close the door. Another TD won't hurt as Jackson takes it 43-27.
My goodness, Grant, what a game. 43 points for Jackson against Miami Trace. That's absurd. How'd they get it done?
Yeah, look, it was mostly due to the man under center. This guy right here. Yeah, Bodie Wolford, he was electric tonight. He made some extremely confident throws downfield against the Miami Trace defense that hasn't seen an aerial attack like this all year. However, some love needs to be shown to Nolan Johnson. It felt like watching vintage Jackson football. That second half, putting it on the ground. Overall, impressive offensive performance.
All right, so you told me that both coaches said a hot start was key to winning this one. How did Miami Trace fall behind?
It was kind of a tale of 2 halves for the Panthers. I think Jackson's intensity on defense surprised them coming out of half. You had Wolford and Simons laying down the law on defense, too. Only 6 points in the second half. It can't be understated enough. Impressive effort.
Yeah, and you talked about how it felt like 2 different halves. So what did Jackson use to its advantage in the second?
Yeah, I told you guys it felt like old school smash mouth Jackson football in that second half, and it's because they fed Johnson the rock almost every play. He kept the ball inbounds, let that clock run, tick, 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 keeping the Ironman defense on the field in the process. Man, what a performance right before the playoffs from Jackson. He might be back.
Yeah, I will have to wait and see. Thanks, Grant. And we're going to go ahead and talk about those playoffs and look at those standings. As you all just saw, Jackson stood their ground against Miami Trace, putting them in the driver's seat of the FAC at 3-0. Miami Trace falls to second, where they are tied with Washington Courthouse, who shocked Hillsborough to improve to 2-1. Hillsborough and Chillicothe are tied at 4th place with a 1-2 record, and McLean is still looking for that first conference win. All right, now it's time to go through our top plays of the evening. There were a lot to look through, but none of that quite measured up to the 5 you're about to see. Let's get right to it. Rolling in at number 5 is a play from Wheelersburg and Waverly. The Tigers go to punt, but oh, what's this? An onside kick. The Pirates clock it, but after a couple of bounces, it ends up right back in Waverly's claws. Well done. Number 4 comes from our game of the week. Miami Trace's Trey Robinette trying to find someone downfield, and look out, this one's coming in hot. Gage Stuckley reels it in for an impressive Panthers tutty. Next up at number 3 is Point Pleasant's Isaac Creel, running like a locomotive kid off the tracks. He is not slowing down. Play numero dos comes from the same place, but this time it's a different face. It's Warren's Taryn Pepper, proving he can get down the field too. He's eastbound and can't be taken down, leaving Point Pleasant in the rear view until he's home free. That is a tutty. And for our top play this evening, we're going to go back to Jackson, where apparently the Panthers take the term kick return very seriously. Put Austin Brown in control, and it seems he knows the way home. We're going to go ahead and speed this up here in just a second because there's no slowing him down. He leaves his competition in the dust and in the process puts his team up. We're going to have to keep an eye on this guy in the future because that was insane. It's crazy to think that the conclusion of this evening brings us to week 9. There's only 2 more regular season games left to be played, and yet there's still so much up in the air. So for the latest updates on conference and playoff standings, make sure to check our social medias throughout the week. And next week, make sure to meet us right back here, because there is nothing better than Friday nights and Gridiron Glory.
Support comes from O'Neill Hartman Insurance, a full-service, third-generation, locally owned agency focusing on building personal relationships and providing professional service to individuals and businesses. Information on the web and on Facebook. Support comes from Ohio's 529 College Advantage, helping families save tax-free for college and career training nationwide for 35 years. Information on Ohio's 529 can be found at collegeadvantage.com/Bobcats. Support comes from Dean Heating and Cooling, keeping homes cool all summer with Tempstar. Dean Heating and Cooling provides HVAC service and installation in the Athens area, featuring Tempstar quality you can feel. Additional support from Donato's Pizza, featuring pizza, subs, salads, and catering from their Athens location at 688 East State Street. Information at donatospizza.com or 740-592-5049.